So these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of like non-chicken nuggets. So these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope. Let's boost that sound quality. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope. Non-chicken nuggets. Non-chicken nuggets. But they're made to emulate the taste of vegan nuggets. Sounds tasty.
Hey.
How are you, Ashley?
I'm good. I've like you said on the last thing that we did, that shows me something new every time. And this time that character really reminded me of Josh from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, if anyone's familiar. Very similar. Yeah.
Good call. I do think that is becoming an inside joke for folks who attend our webinars often, our workshops often on Crowdcast. We always play that video beforehand, and there is truly always something new to pick out. It's like when you watch your favorite movie over and over again, there's always something new. So we'd love to know, if you are somebody who joins us regularly, what did you find this time around? Vegan chicken nuggets. I am a fan, but he does not seem to be. Hi, everybody. My name's Arielle. I am on the community team here at Descript, and I'm here with Ashley. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ashley Hamer. I'm the managing editor here at Descript. So I run the blog, which is descript.com/blog.
We love the blog. It gives us a lot of great content and learnings. And today we are here to do a lot of learning about AI tools for podcasters. We've got a really great hour for you. And in just a moment, I'm going to tell you what to expect in that hour. And let me just share my screen so that we see what's up. So as you know, we're here to discuss AI tools for podcasters. We're going to be going through our workflows. We're going to talk about some of the things that we use within Descript and outside of Descript that supercharge our podcast and video creation processes. And then we even have a special guest towards the middle of our conversation today, who's going to talk about how they use Descript and how they use AI to supercharge their podcast. And then we're going to have some dedicated time for questions. Before we get to all that, let's do a little check-in. Let's figure out exactly what to expect today. And if you are joining us here on Crowdcast live, we would love for you to ask a question in the Ask a Question tab. That's a really great way for us to streamline where those questions are going to be taking place. Christiana is in the chat. Christiana on our community team. She's awesome. She'll be answering those questions as fast as she can. If they get technical, though, she is going to send you over to our help center. That's help.descript.com. If you have a specific question that you'd like answered, you can email our support team. That's support@descript.com. But Christiana will be answering those questions as much as she can. And we also will bring on some questions throughout our conversation, because this is going to be kind of a chatty hour. You know, we've got a lot of questions. We've got a lot of comments. We've got a lot of thoughts about AI tools when it comes to podcasting and creative activities. So I think we're going to make it as interactive as possible. We would love for you to use the chat to keep it as interactive as possible. Share your reactions. Tell us about how you're using AI. Tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube or on Crowdcast and we freeze, just try refreshing the browser. And if for some reason you get disconnected and it's just not working for you, this will be available as a replay on our YouTube channel. And we will also send up a follow-up email afterwards. So if you missed it, you'll get a link to us there. And like I said, if you want more help, you can go to help.descript.com. And then if you want even more help, we have a Discord that is really, really active. And we'd love for you to join us on Discord. And you can do that by scanning this right here. We want you to join our Descript community on Discord. We've got 16,000 plus people hanging out over there. And we have office hours on Discord. So a lot going on over there. I'll leave that up for a few more seconds. And then in just a moment, I will reveal a code for a free month of Descript Pro. So let's get to that now, and then we'll get started with what we're doing today. So if you'd like a free month of Descript Pro, you can scan that code, you can scan that QR code, and you can use the code podcast30. So scan that code. I saw one person already scan that code. We can actually see behind the scenes who and how you are scanning that code. So not who, but that you are scanning that code. We're not violating any privacy issues there. But we love when folks take advantage of that. So thank you for doing that. And with that, Ashley, shall we begin?
Let's start. Yeah.
All right. Again, just to see that code one more time, let's talk about AI tools for podcasters. First, I want to frame this conversation. Before we started, you said to me something that I thought was really profound about AI when it comes to creative activities. So what was that you said?
Yeah, just that a lot of people really think that using AI tools is going to make them less creative. It's going to make for a kind of a robotic result. We do these things kind of as like as humans, we have podcasts and videos as sort of a creative outlet. And if you bring robots into that, like what do you lose? And actually, Descript at the beginning of this year did this giant survey of podcasters and video creators to find out how they felt about using AI tools. And really surprisingly, we found out that a large majority actually found that AI tools made them more creative, partly because it saves them time on like the drudgery so that they can spend more time thinking about, their ideas. And also partly because it just acts as like it can act as another brain in the room to just bounce ideas off of and come up with things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or angles that you wouldn't have taken before. So, it's good to be open-minded about these things. And I know obviously if you're tuning into an event that's about AI for podcasters, you're probably already open-minded about that. But, I think it's just worth mentioning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about how you first got into using AI tools and also a little bit about your shows, just so that we have that context. But I would love to, as I said, keep the chat as active as possible. And we'd love to sort of bring in examples for how folks in the chat, folks who are joining us live, are using AI. So if you use AI, we would love for you to let us know how you use AI, what tools you use, what limitations there are, and we can see if we can kind of bring that into our conversation today. And yes, if you are curious about that survey, we will put a link to it in the chat and we will also send it out afterwards. So Ashley, tell us about your podcast journey. You've had a few podcasts over the years. When did you start using AI and what was your first reaction to AI as it entered this conversation?
Yeah, I think the first time that I ever saw generative AI, which is mostly what we're talking about today, was ChatGPT. I think we got like a little preview of it as in like an all hands meeting at Descript. And I remember me and the rest of the content team feeling like, oh, we need to find new jobs. Like this is the end for us. Now, like the robots can write, we're done for. And I think that was probably a lot of people's first reaction. But I think over time and over using these tools, I got to know them more. I got to understand not only their strengths, but also their limitations and like when they're kind of stupid. And I started using them in my own process. And the way that I use them in my process is, number one, I use them for research. My podcast is a science podcast. It's called Taboo Science. And a lot of the time, when I'm researching for an interview or for writing a new episode, I'll have to go through a lot of different research, sometimes really dense academic articles or even just really, really long, news articles. And one thing that I like to do is use an app called WordTune Read, where you can just upload a PDF or give them a link and it'll summarize it into bullet points so that you don't need to wade through so much information if you have a ton of different sources that you're wading through. Another thing that I'll do on that note is I'll use ChatGPT to translate some really academic language into language I understand. Now,
oh, that's great.
So I like a word of warning about that. You have to sort of know, because ChatGPT isn't always correct, right? So you have to sort of like have a gist of what it means and then ask it so that you can sort of you can fact check it, basically. Be like, oh yeah, okay, I understand that this is what that actually did mean and my guess was correct or whatever. But that's a really good way to do it. And then another thing I'll do pretty much every time now, I'm like, this is part of my process is I will start writing my interview questions to prepare for an interview. And then I will round out those interview questions by going to ChatGPT, giving them the bio of the guests that I'm going to have, and telling them that, and saying what questions should I ask. And usually ChatGPT will give a really long list of questions. They'll always have like multiple parts to them. It's always way too much than I need, but it's very useful to find the places that I've missed and kind of give me ideas for paths to go down in an interview. So that's a really good way to do it too.
These are all really, really great ideas. And I think we'll go more in depth on some of them soon. I'll ask you to share your screen, show me what your Descript, show me what some of your scripts look like, and then what you do within Descript. Because you just mentioned some tools that you use outside of Descript, but of course now Descript has generative AI within it. I want to highlight some of the folks who are sharing with us how they use AI. But in the meantime, while I pull some of those up, what is generative AI? And that word came about around a year ago. We learned about ChatGPT 3 and 4. What is generative AI and how is it different from just plain AI?
Yeah, so generative AI is just a category of artificial intelligence. Some people actually say that it's not even artificial intelligence. That's like a weird, it's very specific, but basically generative AI is artificial intelligence that can generate new content. And usually when we use that word, it means either new text content or new images. And there are even some video generation tools out there that'll do that. But yeah, so that's the difference. And then regular AI, you might even find that in all sorts of tools. You'll find that in Grammarly, like if you use Grammarly to check your spelling and stuff, that uses AI. Siri uses AI, but it's not generative AI because it's not actually creating things anew.
That's a good way to put it. So we've got this comment from Vicky, who is watching us on YouTube right now. I use AI for video title ideas and script writing. I also use AI tools for video editing and repurposing content. I think that is super smart, the video title ideas. So Ashley, give us a sense, just because we don't have time to get Vicky up on stage, how would she be doing that? How is Vicky generating titles and script writing within a ChatGPT or within generative AI?
Yeah, so titles, that's a super useful use of ChatGPT and of now Descript AI tools. If you give it your podcast transcription or your video script and ask it to come up with YouTube titles or podcast titles, it will spit out 10 or so that that are all pretty good. You can also ask it, you can be iterative with it, right? You'd be like, make sure that there's a colon in there that starts it off or something. And it'll do what you want. And then what was the other? Oh, script writing. Yeah, that's a really good way too. You can give it an outline and it'll start writing a script for you. I think a better way to do it is the opposite. Be like, this is what I want to write a script about. Give me an outline, and then you can write the script around the outline that it gives you. And then I think the commenter also said choosing video clips.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it too. If you have a whole podcast, like a really long podcast, and you don't know which places are the best to share on social media, there are several AI tools that will pick spots for you to make video clips out of, and some that even make video clips for you. I mean, the quality is arguable, but it'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those that I've used a few times is called Opus Clips. I think it's opus.pro is the website, and you basically upload, or you can even just share a link from a YouTube video, and it will chop up that video into 10 smaller videos of differing lengths, and it'll determine for you how likely that is to go viral. So it's really, really helpul. I highly recommend checking that out. That's opus.pro.
I do want to say, go ahead. I want to say one thing about those tools, though. I tweeted about this before, but I think one thing that you need to watch out for with AI tools that will create social clips for you is that if you are putting a clip on, say, YouTube Shorts or TikTok or Instagram Reels, the pacing of that clip is so the pacing of Reels and TikToks and YouTube Shorts is much faster than the pacing of your standard podcast. So if you were just going to take out a 1 minute chunk from your podcast, it would be a lot slower and more boring than people who are swiping through
That's
these
true.
short form videos are used to. And so I think one of the better ways to do it, if you really want to do it well, is to maybe use the AI to find those moments, but then do the editing yourself and take out the silences and take out the parts that aren't totally necessary to kind of tighten it up and make it more compelling.
That's a really good point. I think that kind of comes to a larger question that a lot of folks have, which is, should I be putting clips of my podcast on YouTube, on TikTok, on all the different places? And my answer is yes, you should absolutely be, if you are recording video, placing snippets of that video on at least the social platforms, because it will help people discover who you are. The thing that then becomes a little bit of trouble is, people then become used to you on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube Shorts in a very small capacity. They become used to you in 30-second clips. And then when you try to move them over to your podcast, they might not be in the mood to listen to you for 30 to 45 minutes. So that is something to consider. It might help people discover your show, but maybe not stick with it. But I think that's a topic for another discussion, and actually one that we are having at the end of the month, aren't we?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes.
So if you are interested in joining our future events and you're watching us right now on Crowdcast, you can follow us on Crowdcast and you'll be notified of all of our events. And if you're on YouTube, just make sure you hit that bell so that you are subscribed to us, so that you know anytime we put out a new video or anytime that we go live. I'm going to share a few more examples of folks and the way that they are using AI. All right. Claire says, I work for Marketing AI Institute, and I utilize AI for almost all of my tasks to help automate and streamline my workflow for our podcast and content creation. I love that.
Awesome.
Automation and streamlining is just so great. If you can figure that out, you will save yourself a lot of time. Mark says, aside from the Descript AI tools, I use vidIQ for YouTube keywords and Lex for episode title suggestions. The thing I could do with is creating accurate show notes and time codes for my pod, The Impossible Network. Thank you for sharing. Awesome.
I believe
go ahead.
We have a Descript AI tool that does that now, don't we?
Let's talk about that. Go ahead, and then I'll bring up Smarty Art Brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost hard to keep up with how many with all the new AI tools that we've been releasing. We are planning to release at least one AI tool every single week for the rest of the year, basically. But so far, I believe, I need to actually look because I don't want to give anything away, right? But we've released things like you can do YouTube descriptions, you can do podcast show notes, and those both come with chapter markers, which is, just want to say, that's super useful. Everyone should be doing that. It's a really good way to get listeners when maybe they just want to hear one part of your conversation. They can just jump to that, and it makes it a lot easier lift for them. But yeah, Descript can do that now, so try it out.
Awesome. And I just got word from our inner chat here that AI show notes is out, and auto chapters and markers. And we're going to show you what that looks like in a second within Descript. So you can do a lot of this within Descript. And this is, stuff that was available beforehand, but you would have had to, get your transcript on Descript and then download it and then upload it to ChatGPT or Lex or one of those other places, Cast Magic, some of those other generative AI websites that help podcasters, and then ask it to do all those things. Now you can do that all within Descript, which is super cool. So we'll show you how to do that momentarily. I just want to share a few more AI examples. Pauline says, I use it to spark creativity and get things going with ideas. And Ashley, that's something that you brought up at the beginning of our chat today, which is that a lot of people think AI is going to suck the fun out of your creativity. And that just doesn't seem to be the case. In my case, it just frees me up to be a little bit more creative. And I really sound like I'm shilling for the future, but this really just is the case.
Yeah, totally.
And Smarty Art Brother says, I use an AI tool to generate quotes, transcripts, and promo art for my guests. Promo art, that's really interesting. I'd love to know more about that. AI tool to generate quotes is such a smart thing to do, especially if you are somebody who likes to start your show notes with a quote from your guest. That's a really great way to say, hey, generative AI, can you pick out a really impactful quote from this conversation that we had? And you can also make graphics with that as well. Ashley, what comes to mind for you with that?
Yeah, that actually makes me remember one other way that I use generative AI, which is I use Photoshop and the Adobe Creative Suite. And Photoshop has this really cool thing that will, if you take a photo, if you have a photo that's kind of cropped, it can generate more stuff around that photo. And I will do that for some of my YouTube thumbnails because, say, I have a headshot from a guest who maybe their shoulders are cut off, and I want to show their full shoulders. Photoshop can do that for me, which is super cool. And the first time I used it, it felt like magic. It was amazing.
And I think even Canva does that now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. They're really stepping it up when it comes to all that as well. All right. We would love to continue taking your questions, comments. Reminder to put your questions in the Ask a Question tab so that Christiana can answer them as we go. And we're also going to be saving some of them so that we can answer them live on stage towards the end of our conversation. We also wanted to let you know that if you have questions beyond just this hour about AI, we have a lot going on within our Discord. So I'm going to put the QR code up again for our Descript Discord. We'd love to have you there. So you can join us there. It's up on the top of the screen right now. And we have also a ton of office hours that we'd love for you to be a part of on our Discord. So if you join us there, you'll be notified of those things. So Ashley, with that, would you like to spend a few moments sharing your screen with us and showing us a bit about how you physically use Descript for AI? That would be awesome.
I was not prepared. So let me prepare. Let's talk a little bit more about other stuff.
Okay. So in a few moments, we're going to hear from Ashley, and then we're going to bring a special guest up on the stage who actually is my co-host for one of my podcasts. And he has a bunch of podcasts on his own, but he recently let me know, we were communicating about an upcoming episode, that he is in love with Descript's AI tools. And I was like, can you tell me more about that? And he was like, yes, I would love to. So then he gave us this really great quote about how he uses it. And we were like, you know what? We're having this event about Descript's AI. Would you like to come up on stage and share your use case with us? So he will be joining us later in our conversation to walk us through how he uses Descript. And that is what is coming up for us in this hour. And with that, Ashley, would you like to share your screen with us?
I would.
How was my vamping?
That was great. It was great vamping. Let's see. We are trying to I said I was ready. No, I'm ready. I promise. Hey, there I am.
There you are.
My face. So a quick little plug also. I just published an article about how I do video podcasts with Descript, and I got like 10 times the YouTube subscribers in like 6 months. And this is one of the ways that I do it. It's just totally I don't even look into the camera. I just put a camera in my recording space, and that is how I got video. In addition to Squadcast, which already gets video. But so what I want to show you is some of these AI tools that we have. So right here, this is my episode about IQ and intelligence. Up in the AI action, or just in the actions bar, we can go to Ask AI, and we can say, what do we want to do? We want to do maybe show notes. Let's do podcast show notes for this episode about intelligence. So it says draft podcast style show notes for this. You can add other stuff. You can say, write in a casual third person tone. I don't know.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And then we say enter, and AI is thinking. Usually happens pretty fast. And of course, because it's live, it's happening slower than normal. But what this will do is it'll write me some podcast show notes, and it'll give me those chapter markers I was talking about. And then you can be just as iterative with this as you would be with ChatGPT. You could say, improve it this way. Okay, so it gives me a title. It says Breaking Down IQ. I wish I could make this larger, but it says Breaking Down IQ, a reflective look at intelligence testing. And it's, here in this episode of Taboo Science, Ashley Hamer explores, blah, blah, blah. And it's nice and long. I've seen some tools that do like 2 paragraphs, and that I feel like that's too long. This feels like a really good length. And then they have these timestamps. So in the beginning, there's introduction. At 20 seconds, the limitations. It's actually like really thorough. At the end is closing remarks. So You can take that, you can paste it into your podcast host, and you can edit it to make it sound like your voice and everything. And yeah, it's super helpful. So let's see, what else can we do? You want to do continue editing with AI. Start over.
So now we can just give it a whole nother prompt.
Yes.
Ooh, and then on the bottom of the screen, you can let us know if that AI was helpful.
Oh, that was helpful. Thank you, Descript.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
Descript.
Oh, I don't want to tell you how it was helpful. Okay. That YouTube description, it's going to be very similar. We can also say social posts. Talk me through some options for text posts I could post on social media and promote for this, and to promote this. Suggest some specific posts I could make and give me a few options. So yeah, let's just say
Let's try that out.
AI is thinking.
And this is our generative AI, but of course we had different AI capabilities before this was launched. Like you can shorten word gaps, you can remove your ums and your ahs, your filler words. So if folks want a little recap on that, we can show that in just a moment. We're talking about AI in general. So yes, generative AI is like the hot new thing on the street, but of course we like our old school AI too. So Ashley, what did it come up with?
Yeah, so it came up with a Facebook post idea, a Twitter tweet idea, an Instagram post idea, LinkedIn, Pinterest, which is great because I am definitely someone who is guilty of just using the same language on all of those platforms, and you don't want to do that. You want to tailor it to the platform. So, you got these emojis, you got all sorts of cool stuff.
It gives you emojis. I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
And I'm sure you could then reply and say, do this without emojis.
You can. Let's do it. Let's see. Putting it to the test. I was asking a question. Certainly, here are some social media posts without the use of emojis. Yeah,
and what I think is really cool about this is you could change the tone completely. You could say, do this as if you're speaking to a 5-year-old or something like that. Yeah. So this is all available right within Descript. So Ashley, how accurate is this that you're finding? So you just had it generate show notes for you. Obviously, this is an episode of your own show that already came out and you wrote show notes for that. Do you currently write your own show notes or do you use AI for them?
I use AI for that. Yeah, wow. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. And awesome. Which is honestly, I not to plug Descript too heavily, but I've been trying a lot of different podcast show note tools, and most of them cost like $20-$30 a month. And if you already use Descript, this being included, like that saves you a bundle, really.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like I said, after trying a whole bunch of tools, I really am impressed by the way that Descript can do this. I think it's really accurate. I totally agree with everything that it chose to highlight in these posts and in the show notes. And it's super nice that it's still iterative. You can still like have it make revisions and things like that. And the thing with ChatGPT, because you could always do this with ChatGPT, right? But ChatGPT has a limited context window. And what that means is that it can only take so much text from you before it starts ignoring certain things that you give it. So if you put in an entire transcript, it's depending on how long your episode is, it might just ignore the last half, and you're not going to get the same kind of accuracy from it as you would with something that is tailor-made for doing this with your transcript. Yeah.
Awesome. So we did have a request in Crowdcast for somebody to to do a little bit of an exploration of regular AI. So this is generative AI. This is, where you can ask the AI to do whatever you want. But let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about some of Descript's capabilities, just when it comes to, shortening your filler words or getting rid of your silences or anything like that. So what would you do in that situation? Can you just walk us through? This used to be what I called the magic button up on the top right of the screen on Descript, but Descript's inside joke is that we always have a new update for you. And so things have changed. It's because we love you. The more updates, the more we love you. So what can you do that is regular AI?
So there's shortened word gaps, which is really helpful for like raw interview tape that, maybe will have like long, long silences that you would just want to shorten everything up. That's a really helpful one to use. We also, obviously, the filler words thing, which honestly I don't use that much. I think I just like to have my own human touch. You know, we all have our preferences, but absolutely, there's a remove filler words remove filler words tool that will show you all of the filler words. You can remove them with one click, or you can go step by step and like choose which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of. And then one of my favorite AI tools is, especially for this purpose, as you can see, I'm looking into a screen right now, but I wish I was looking into the camera. There is a, let's see, yeah. There's an effect called eye contact, which is super neat. It is applying it. It might take a second, but it just adjusts my gaze so that I'm looking straight into the camera. It's a game changer. I love it so much. We also, while it's working, I'll just say, like, we also have an AI green screen feature. So if I didn't like my background, which honestly I don't really, I could just remove that, put something else behind me, and it's really good at like picking out where the subject is and where the background is.
And you could put anything behind you. You could like make yourself sit in space. You could be in a different office. Totally up to you and what you can find on the stock images or the stock video or the stock GIFs on Descript.
Yes, totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna take a second. It really
no worries.
Eye contact really likes to take a while, but
it wants to get it right, you know, and I respect that. In just a moment, we are going to bring Tim Villegas up on stage. Tim is my co-host for Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast, which is a podcast all about podcast trailers, but he also hosts a few other podcasts. And he recently let me know that he has been using AI for his podcast production. So we wanted to bring somebody up on stage to share from their perspective how they use it, how they incorporate it as part of their workflow, and what it does to help their workflow, help them work faster, work better, work smarter. So we'll bring Tim up shortly. In the meantime, wanted to remind folks that if you have questions, please put them in the Ask a Question tab. We're going to be answering some of them as they come, but we will also have some time at the end where we will answer your questions. Ashley, any other comments? Anything else you wanted to show us?
No, that's it. I think we're not going to wait for eye contact to work, but we have a bunch of really cool demos on YouTube that show how effective it is, and Christiana can share those in the chat.
Yes,
Okay.
I have used it a whole bunch, and it's a really great way to, if I'm looking over here, it just makes it look like I'm looking at you right now, and that's wild. Freaky, but also cool.
I wish we had it in real time so I could be like staring at
you'll see now. Like sometimes when I really know what I'm talking about, I'll look right into the camera, but most of the time I'm looking at myself and making sure that I am looking okay. All right, let's bring Tim up to the stage. I will bring him up now. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hello. How's it going?
How's it going?
Good. Oh, I'm going to move this out of screenshot. There you go.
Glad to have you here, Tim. First, would you please introduce yourself? I told our viewers a little bit about you, but give us your background. Tell us what you do in the podcast space, and then we'll get into your AI usage.
Well, as you know, I'm a podcast dabbler. My name is Tim Villegas. So my, I guess, day job, did we even say that anymore? But I'm the Director of Communications for the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education. I've been in the comms space since 2020. I was a public school teacher before that, 16 years in public education. You said I co-host a podcast with you, but I do two other podcasts, one for the nonprofit that I work for called Think Inclusive, and the other is a narrative podcast series that we are wrapping up called Inclusion Stories. And the reason I reached out to you, Arielle, was because narrative podcasts are hard. I don't know if you know that. If podcasters, I think, tough.
They're you get it.
Yeah. They're tough. But I will have to say that Descript has been an absolute lifesaver for me in producing a narrative podcast. In fact, I would not have been able to produce the narrative podcast without Descript because I didn't have a team. You know, we were able to raise funds, but only for me to work on the podcast. And so I was able to travel to The podcast is called Inclusion Stories. It's a narrative podcast about inclusive schools all around the country and families who are pursuing authentic inclusive education for their children with disabilities. And so I was able to get like hours and hours and hours of tape of in-person interviews, of virtual interviews, and there's just a lot of content to summarize and to cut. And so I was just this last week producing chapter 4 of that series, and I had about 3 or 4 interviews. We're talking about 2 or 3 hours of tape that I had already cut down, but I had to go through and figure out what parts am I going to use and what parts am I going to narrate around. And I saw that Descript had a summarize feature. And so this is the first time I had ever used it. And so I was going through and I highlighted the entire interview, which is I cut down to about 30 minutes. And I asked Descript to summarize it for me. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. All I have to do is pick out the best sound bites in the interview and then summarize the rest of the and narrate around the sound clips that I picked out.
Right.
This is literally saving me hours of work, because typically what I would do is I would just listen to it over and over again, and cut and then, go to my script and then write, the narration parts of it and figure out the transitions. So I was like, I need to tell Arielle this because, I've been a Descript fan for a while, but ever since, she's been on board, I kind of just share little tidbits and what I'm learning and stuff like that. And so I just had to share and say just how fortunate I am to be able to use this tool. So.
Oh, can you share why, Arielle? What do you guys do together?
Well, we do co-host a podcast together, the Trailer Park, the podcast
Yes.
Trailer Podcast.
It's a great podcast. Everyone should listen.
Thank you, actually. Tim, can you give us an example? So let's go to chapter 1 of Inclusion Stories. Tell us a little bit of the background of how you gathered the tape for it, and then we'll sort of go through how you cut through that tape. I love to give concrete examples. I think it's a really helpful way for folks to see things.
Sure. Yeah. So chapter 1 centers around a story of a family in Georgia, and their kind of story of fighting for inclusion for their daughter with Down syndrome. And so they live a couple hours away from me, and I live in the Atlanta area. They live a couple hours away. So I drove to their house and I followed them around with my Zoom H6 and shotgun mic, and just went around and recorded hours and hours of just hanging out with the family and going to the school, picking up their daughter from school, from the first day of school, riding in their van. So I was getting all of that really wonderful, rich tape. But then I sat down with them in their living room and I pulled up my pod mics and I set it up, and I interviewed them there. So we're talking a good 2-hour in-person interview, and then maybe a couple hours of just situational, whatever's happening in the moment. And then I go back and I dump all of that into Descript.
And that's hours and hours of tape.
Hours and hours of tape. And so, of course, I have like the very top tier of whatever Descript has because of the amount of transcription that happens. But then I'll just go through and I'll cut and be like, I definitely just want and narrow down those things to big chunks of time. So 20, 30-minute chunks of time. And then after, especially with this series, I just had to do that with every single interview. Because I have an idea. I have like a storyboard of like what after everything has been recorded, I have a storyboard of what I want all the scenes to look like in each chapter. But if you look at I still have the storyboard up in front of me. So
Wow.
in the first chapter, I have a school bus scene, and then I have my interview with the parents, and then I have an interview with some district school leaders in Maryland, because that's I'm trying to contrast what this family has to to deal with in a school system in Georgia versus school systems in Maryland that are already inclusive. And so I interviewed them, and I was able to, visit a school, and I was visit a classroom and get all of that, wonderful background noise of kids going through the halls and talking with the school leader. And then we go back, and I have a bunch of tape of a virtual interview of me and the family. And then I have all the narration. So I have to figure out what all the scenes are going to look like. And so in Descript, I have each kind of composition is a scene.
Wow.
And so I will go through and pick out all the scenes. And then I don't actually edit. I don't do like mixing and mastering in Descript. I use Audition for that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But I do.
You don't have to.
I do
understand.
export all of that. I export all of it, and then I do all of my background sound effects, and which I know you can do in Descript, but what I'm doing, it's easier for me to do it in Audition.
Look, you have your workflow. We understand. If you're using us for all that anyway, we're grateful.
Oh my gosh, and like all the things that you just mentioned with the AI tools, I think that's especially with the promotion of all the video clips and the social, it's just like unbelievable how much you can accomplish.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're getting a lot of love in our chat, in our live chat right now on Crowdcast. Michelle Bowler says a great person for Tim to get in touch with is Michelle Norman. She's a military spouse who had to advocate for her daughter with disabilities to receive inclusive education. So definitely make sure, Tim, that you head on over there and connect. We love making connections when we do these events. So really appreciate you saying that, Michelle. And Tim, thank you so much for sharing that with us. We would love for you to include a link to your show in the Crowdcast feed so that folks can check it out. It's a show that is produced mostly on Descript, and we're really grateful for that. Ashley, do you have any questions for Tim before we say goodbye and go to the Q&A portion of our conversation today?
No, just that you gave me some great ideas. The summary feature is something I've never even tried either. And because I was just like, oh, summary, but that's like podcast show notes, right? No, that use is very useful, and I'm going to try that out too. So
and I will say, like, I've been using other tools to get all of this stuff accomplished. And so what was so nice is that I was like, I don't have time to use another tool right now. I know that Descript has these tools. Let me just see what I can do. And it was such a wonderful surprise to be able to get what I needed done just with the tools that were available. So again, hats off to everyone at Descript. I tell everyone about you.
Oh.
It's like I'm an evangelist for Descript. So there you go.
We love that so much. And we will be taking advantage of the fact that you love us, and we will be asking you for quotes, and we will be asking you to join us for more of these. So stay tuned. You've now made yourself available.
Love it.
Tim, thank you for joining us. Please put a link in the chat so that we can check out your show and so that other folks can, just like be aware of the really great work you're doing. And again, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right. That was Tim Villegas. His show is
Yay.
called Think Inclusive or Inclusion Stories. He's got a few shows. He works for the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education. He's also my co-host on Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast, which is how I knew that he was doing all this. So we'll put a link to his show shortly so that you can check out all the great work that he does. Ashley, how do you feel?
I feel great.
Me too.
Let's answer some questions. Do people
Let's
have
answer some questions. I love those questions that are coming in. Before we answer those questions, take some time to get your questions together, folks who are watching us live. Before we answer those questions, just a reminder that if you have not yet claimed your free month of Descript Pro, I just put the QR code up so that you can scan that. It's code podcast30. We would love for you to check out all of the amazing features that we are discussing here today and that we will continue to discuss in further webinars, future webinars that we have, and on our Discord. And we'd love for you to join us on Discord. So next up is that QR code. Join us on Discord. And on Discord, we have, lots of channels for every single thing that you can possibly imagine. We've got back channels to discuss AI. We've got channels to discuss podcast promo swaps. We've got channels to discuss tech bugs that you might be experiencing, and also a lot of really great opportunities to just connect with the folks who are working at Descript. So scan that QR code, join us on our Discord channel. And any other administrative announcements that you've got for us, Ashley?
Oh, if you want to find some good guides for doing things in podcasting, anything from scripting to recording to gear guides to really like to marketing, the Descript blog has it all. We call it Creator HQ for that reason. So go to descript.com/blog and you'll find all that there.
Awesome. And I just want to make one more plug. We have office hours every Wednesday with Marcelo, who's on our support team on Discord. So if you join our Discord, you can join us for those office hours. Those are just general office hours that if you have any questions about Descript, you can ask them there. We also have remote recording office hours, and I'm looking for that. We've got remote recording office hours that takes place every Thursday, and that's also on our Discord channel. So join that Discord channel. You'll know everything there is to know about the wider world of Descript. And then one more thing that Christiana mentioned before that I did not get around to is that if you go to descript.com/community, you'll find all of this. So if you don't want to, have to remember all these different links, descript.com/community will take you there. With that, let's answer some questions, shall we?
Let's do it.
I love this question. Is there a best platform/software to use for hosting your podcast? I currently use SoundCloud and an RSS feed to send out to different platforms, but I'm interested in switching over and don't know where to start. Ashley, what do you use?
Well, I use Captivate, but there are so many out there, and we have guides on that on the blog. I will find a link to give to
The blog
Christiana.
really has everything, doesn't it?
It does. It has everything. Yeah.
So you use Captivate. What brought you to Captivate?
I didn't do a huge search. I looked at a few different ones. I used to use Libsyn. It felt a little old. It felt like it wasn't getting all of the features that other ones were getting. And I liked that Captivate, its pricing structure is basically you pay more the more successful your show gets. So it's by downloads.
Oh, wow.
So you get all of the same stuff as like a higher tier show on day one. You just pay a little bit more once you start to get more downloads, which I think is a really cool pricing structure. And they have a ton of other stuff too. They have like dynamic ad insertion and different things that are really useful. So yeah.
Love that. I'm a big fan of Captivate's interface. I currently use OSHA for one of my podcasts for Trailer Park, AUSHA. It's a French-based company. It's a France-based company, and they actually have a lot of AI tools baked in. So if you are interested in, summaries and show notes and things like that, you can check out OSHA. I use Buzzsprout for another one of my podcasts. They also have a bunch of AI tools, just to sort of bring this back to the AI discussion of it all. And then I also use Spreaker for another one of my podcasts.
Wow.
3 podcasts. Thank you for that question. And let's go on to another one. Is it best to apply studio sound before you apply shortened word gaps, etc.? Ashley, what is your workflow for that?
It doesn't really matter, but I think if you're gonna apply studio sound, just do it out of the gate, because it's just a nicer experience on your ears, right, while you're editing and while you're listening to things. So I would say do it first, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, truly doesn't matter when you do it. I tend to do it at the beginning. And then I saw another question pop up before that was that when they apply studio sound, sometimes it cuts off the end or the beginning of words. And so is there any solution to that? And I'm not going to be able to find that right now, so I'll just answer that question. And just to repeat, the question is, when you apply studio sound to your entire transcript, sometimes at the beginning of the words or at the end of the words, or sometimes short words in the middle of larger words get cut off, that might be because studio sound is overcompensating if you have some really tough background noise that it's filtering out, in which case I recommend lowering the intensity of your studio sound. Studio sound is on an intensity scale. The default is at 100%, but you can lower that. I usually choose somewhere between 60 and 70%, and I find that cuts out the background noise while still keeping all of my words intact.
And if there is one word that's just being annoying for you and it's not sounding right, you can always highlight it and click regenerate, and you can get a nice version of that word with AI.
Ain't that the truth? Next question comes to us, and it says, where does Descript pull its AI from? Is it OpenAI?
So Descript, the thing that we were just showing about the show notes and things like that, I believe that is OpenAI. I believe that is ChatGPT API. But our other AI stuff, that's in-house, baby. We did that ourselves.
We're so smart. Love that question. Thank you so much for asking. Next question comes to us and it says, when removing silences, so this was that question, but actually I think this touches on something else. When removing silences or filler words, Descript sometimes clips the surrounding words and makes it sound a little bit robotic. Is there a way around this? I never recommend doing an apply all if you're doing removing filler words, because sometimes it will interpret an as in an article, the article a, like I'm going to a movie, but you might pronounce that as I'm going to a movie, and it might assume that you're saying a movie, and so it might cut that out, which obviously would be destructive towards your sentences. So you probably don't want that to be the case. I usually recommend having Descript highlight your filler words and then going through it individually, or really cutting out ones as you go. Ashley, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, I recommend doing it as you go. But then also, if something has been cut out and there's a weird silence or a weird clip between words, you can always go into the timeline as your last resort and just futz with the word borders and kind of give it a little bit more space. So you can treat it just like a regular DAW at that point and use the timeline.
Yeah, again, Descript is non-destructive, which means that even if you get rid of something, even if you press delete, even if you go into the waveform and you highlight something and delete it, you can always get it back, which is a lifesaver.
Yes.
All right. Adding new AI stuff to my workflow feels intimidating. Any tips for getting started? You started there once, Ashley. How did you get started?
I would start with low stakes tasks. I would not start with your podcast, honestly. I would start with a little project you have to do for work, or maybe an email you need to write, or anything, depending on the tool, just something that is just a fun little project and not necessarily something that you're staking your reputation on. And just get to know the tools, get to know what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how you can use them best. And then once you start feeling more comfortable and familiar with them, then you can start using them for the big stuff that you really want to make good.
Yeah, something that I used it for, I want to say around a year ago, it just blew my mind, sort of to, whet my appetite when it comes to the possibilities within AI. Is I had my bio, my personal professional bio, or my bio in third person, and somebody asked for it in first person. I just pasted it into ChatGPT and I said, can you make this first person? Right. That's just like a quick thing that it can do that would take me, 5 minutes to go through and do. And it took ChatGPT 20 seconds. So
that's such a good use for it too.
Right.
My LinkedIn, like whatever that's called, the headline thing is from ChatGPT. I needed it new, and I'm terrible about talking about myself. And so I was just like, hey, ChatGPT, here are the things I've done, write something. And it wrote something really nice. And I was like, yes, finally, someone else could do this for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so great. What AI do you have that is not ChatGPT? I am confused. Let's clear up some confusion.
Yes. So the text-based, the thing that I was doing at the beginning, where it would take the transcript and then it would write something new from it. So podcast show notes, YouTube descriptions, summarizing, headlines, things like that. That is ChatGPT. That is a very specific generative AI, large language model specifically, that will take your transcript and make something new from it. Now, before we ever put that into Descript, which is very new, that part is very new. Before we ever did that, we had a bunch of other AI stuff that isn't necessarily generative. So remember when I was saying how like Grammarly or Siri uses AI, but it's not generative AI because it's not creating something new from the data you're giving it. That's what I mean for other AI features. So, for example, eye contact, when it can change your gaze from looking at your screen to looking at your camera. That is AI, but it is not ChatGPT doing that. Or things like green screen, or even our automatic transcript. That is not something that is from ChatGPT. It's just, but it is artificial intelligence powered. So yeah.
Yeah, it's generative versus non-generative.
Mm-hmm.
How do you draft your outline / talking points with AI?
Yeah, you would. I think a good way to do that is to just get into a ChatGPT window and say, this is what I want to talk about. Here are the points I want to hit. Here's some information about it. Write me an outline. or write me some talking points. And then if it writes you some things that aren't quite right, you just tell it how it wasn't right, and it'll write it for you again. That's a pretty good use
It's
of
pretty
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the coolest part about this is that it understands, it's called, ChatGPT is an LLM. You'll hear that thrown around. That's a large language model. So it has consumed a ton of human language in order to then figure out how to respond with human sounding language. It's coming from an AI. So you can ask it a question, and if it doesn't understand your question, it's not like you're on the phone with customer support and it's a robot on the other end, and you have to say, operator, operator, operator. You can say, hello, this is actually not what I wanted. So imagine being able to do that. And by the way, you can tell I'm millennial because I do this and not this. What do you do?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really cool, and I think the future is here. All right, we have a few more questions. Can you tell us about the recent changes to overdub? Ashley, have you used overdub recently?
Yes. So overdub is dead. Long live overdub. Long live AI voices, actually. Yeah. So we now call it AI voices, and it's overdub on steroids. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. Basically, the way that overdub used to work is you had to record a consent statement. You still have to do that. But you record a consent statement saying, this is my voice and I want to use it for this. And then you had to read like you had to basically give it a big sample of your voice so that it could make a model of your voice that you could use to create an AI voice. Now it basically, what is it, 60 seconds or something of your voice that you need to use, and it can do it like that. It's super quick. It's also much more natural sounding. It can actually take, if you record in different environments, it can take that, like say there's background noise in one of your recordings where it isn't in the first time you used AI. I believe it will incorporate that background noise to make it sound seamless. It's so good. It's really cool.
Awesome. We've got this really great comment from Mary, who is watching us on YouTube, that I wanted to share. Mary says, I use ChatGPT all the time, including for strategy. Huge time saver. Here's a tip. Paste your bio and all you do and tell it what you need. The content will be much better. Ashley,
Yes.
You're shaking your head. You're nodding along. Why do you agree?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is very good at taking on a role. So pasting your bio is basically telling it, here's who I am and the kinds of things that I do and what I like, the area of work I'm in, right like that, versus just not telling it anything and it's going to give you a generic thing. But another thing you can do, if you want to write in different voices, you can say, write like, pretend that you are a content marketer who is blah blah blah, or pretend you are a poet who is writing blah 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 blah, and it'll change its tone based on that. So that's a really good way. But yeah, using your bio, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, thank you for that tip, Mary. Really, really helpful. Let me do one more bit of housekeeping before we go. There is a poll if you are watching us live on Crowdcast right now, and that poll is asking you if you found this session helpful. So we would love it if you, number one, found this session helpful. Number two, went and voted in there. That would be really helpful for us. Thank you so much in advance. Let's take one more question before we close it out. Is there a repository to find all past AI outputs from your drive? I've accidentally clicked off and had to completely start over. Do you know about this?
I don't.
I don't either, but that sounds like a great idea. It sounds, because on ChatGPT, you can sort of see all of your past search queries. Mm-hmm. So I imagine theoretically that should be a possibility, but I have not found it within mine. We don't have that right now, says Christiana in our private chat, but we love that as a feature request. So Christiana will put our feature request form in the chat so that you can put that in there. And folks who are listening and agreeing, you can upvote that so that it gets to the powers that be faster. That's a really great question. All right, it is now 59 of the hour. We've got just 1 minute left, so I'm going to use this moment to wrap us up. Ashley, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for sharing your expertise when it comes to how you use AI for your podcast. And thank you to Tim Villegas, who joined us, for sharing his insights as well. Christiana, thank you for answering questions in the chat. Attendees, thank you for being here. And anybody who is Anybody who is watching this later, thanks for being here. Christiana says, don't forget to tease the new AI stuff dropping tomorrow for podcasters. That's for you, specifically the folks who are watching this. So we would love it if you just follow us on social so that you can be aware of all of the new AI things that are coming. They are constantly coming at you, and we would love for you to be the first to know about them. So that is what is upcoming, and more events coming from us very soon. So stay tuned. Until then, happy AI creating, happy podcasting, happy video creating, and let us know if you have any questions about Descript. We're available all over the socials. And if you go to descript.com/community.